Real People, Real Stories, and we are in episode 3. I celebrate an entire month of Halloween because it's my favorite holiday. Ever since I was a kid, I have been entranced with the paranormal. So what better way than to invite Bernadette Peck and Dennis Webster from the Ghost Seekers of Central New York to hang out with me today. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
I was just telling you, I never prepare for this because I think it's such a cool way to have a conversation and sort of talk about everything that goes on in your life. Everybody has a story to tell, and you two certainly have quite a story. Now, Bernadette, you were telling me you are psychic.
I don't know, sensitive.
Sensitive?
Yes.
Now, do you feel like there's a difference between sensitive and psychic?
Yes, I do.
What's the difference?
Well, to me, being sensitive would be being able to pick up on other energies around you, and also the ability maybe to even see energies around you. I think a psychic is someone who can see behind you and ahead of you, and I don't feel that I could ever do that.
Do you ever see things, though?
Yes, I do.
And this started when you were little.
Yes, when I was a little girl, there used to be a woman who would come into my room. I still remember her long black hair, red dress, and she would just stand there and look at me. She was trying to talk to me through her eyes, and I didn't know what she wanted. And she'd come often, and when I'd tell my parents, they'd say, "There's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
You must be having a dream." And when I tried to tell the nuns where I went to school, they thought I was this evil person. Oh my God, you know. So that's always been with me. Ghosts were always intriguing to me. I would read everything I could about them. I happened upon a man called Hans Holzer. Have you heard of him?
I sure have heard of Hans Holzer.
Yeah.
I read a lot about him.
Oh, do you know he's on? I mean, they're doing his cases on TV now?
Yes, I watched the first episode last week and I loved it.
Oh, yeah, it was good. But anyways, I read his books and, you know, what he did, his methods. I think the movie that really turned me over was the original 13 Ghosts, and I was just a kid. It was a black and white movie.
I remember watching that as a kid, too, because I was fascinated. Oh, yeah. I was fascinated with the paranormal from the time I was a child. And I remember watching that movie and just being so scared, but loving it.
Loving it at the same time.
Exactly. And that's how I grew up. Do you believe that kids are more likely to see spirits and ghosts because people haven't told them that they don't exist yet?
Exactly what you said.
I know, I've seen a lot. My nieces and nephews have had experiences over the years as small children who have described my grandfather, completely described my grandfather, and there was no way they would even know that he was there.
And they talk about children, imaginary friends.
Sure.
And I believe that they are friends. They're just spirits left from another time who are lonely.
How did you kind of deal with everything as you were getting older, being sensitive, and was it hard to go through life feeling that way? Did you understand it?
I knew in my heart it was real, and at a very young age I remember walking down the sidewalk in my hometown, which was Yorkville, and just stopping dead in my tracks, and something shot through my head and said, "You will always be here. You're never going to go away." And I always remembered that, and it kind of told me what I needed to know, that our lives continue on, maybe in another form, in another place, but we're never really gone.
Do you believe in reincarnation?
Yes, I do.
And you believe that you've had several lives before?
Yes, I do. I think I'm an old spirit.
And I think that's right. I think that you can tell, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. I think if you are open to that kind of idea, you can tell that you have been through many lives as opposed to maybe not, or maybe just a few. Because I think you have a different understanding of the world if you are an old soul and you have been through many lives. Agree?
Agree. Completely, yes.
So what made you decide to start a group, a paranormal group, the Ghost Seekers of Central New York?
Well, I just always, can you remember me and Kathy getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, my girlfriend and I, and just let's go to a cemetery. I mean, always a part of my life had to do with ghosts and spirits. And, partially with my sister and my best friend decided to get some other people together. Oh, I know what it was. When I heard that there were actually ghost groups, I kind of freaked out. And that's when I went to Syracuse to one of the meetings that I wasn't happy about. And I decided, I can do this. I can get people who are on the same path as I am, and just got a hold of people here and there. People have come and gone in my group. Right now I have the best group I ever had. Really passionate people.
And how many years ago did you start?
20 years ago.
So
1999.
this was back before all of the
cool.
TV paranormal shows were on, and people thought, and we'll talk about the paranormal shows in a second, because I have a question for you guys.
Geez.
I know. So, but this was before anybody was really aware of it, too. Before it was cool to be into the paranormal.
Yeah, and
so
now it's just everybody wants a part of it.
Exactly. And I don't know that that's necessarily a good thing, in my own opinion, that everybody wants to be a part of it, because being so involved in it myself, I understand that it has to be taken seriously. It's not something to be taken lightly or for granted. So, Dennis, how did you get involved with Bernadette and Ghost Seekers?
Well, I'm a published author, and I had written some true crime books, and I happened to see Bernadette's group do a presentation at the Oneida County History Center, and afterwards we went for coffee with the group, and I asked them if I could follow along and write a book on their ghost hunting. I was skeptical, but I wanted to believe, but I never had experienced anything. And then as I started going on more and more investigations, I started opening up. Is that the right term you would say, Bernadette? I started getting used to it, and they liked me, and they asked me to join the group.
Your first ever investigation, how did that go? Were you scared? Were you nervous? Were you excited?
It was wild. It was at the Stanley Theater.
Oh, that's a great one to start with.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
That
gosh.
is so haunted. It's beautiful, but very haunted. Down in the ladies' room.
I've heard many, many stories about the ladies' room at
Right.
the Stanley Theater.
Yeah, but that's nothing compared to that black mist
That
going
that-
up the
Up the
stairs.
staircase, yeah, when we did
Wow.
that. Yeah.
So that was your first investigation, and then you were kind of hooked?
Yes. Yeah.
I think once something happens to you that you can't totally explain, I know for me, you want more. It's like a hunger. You need to know more. You need to find out more and experience more. What books have you written, Dennis?
Haunted Mohawk Valley, Haunted Utica. I also wrote the history book, Old Main, about the lunatic asylum in Utica.
Which I have all of your books. I will admit it. We were just saying I'm kind of a groupie of sorts. I used to go to all your lectures, bought all your books, because they're so well written, and they're very informative. And I read the Old Main book twice. I had a personal experience at the Old Main, and I got your book and I read it, and it's just beautifully written and informative. So you've got more coming out, right?
Right, working on Haunted Adirondacks right now.
And what kind of places did you investigate for Haunted Adirondacks?
Well, the Ghost Seekers, Bernadette and our group, some of the places we did that are going to be in the book is like Van Auken. We also did a walk around of the Big Moose Lake with Grace Brown.
Oh, yeah, that was nice.
Her spirit that hovers above the water over there. You know that whole story.
I know the
Chester
I
Gillette?
have the book.
Oh, yeah.
I have the book. I have the book.
That everybody ought to
Yeah,
have.
exactly. It's
Bernadette
great.
actually saw her spirit on the 100th anniversary of her death.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God! And how long ago was that?
Was it 06?
2006?
Yeah, it was 06. It was 100 years.
Describe that to me.
Well, myself and a few other girls decided to go up and spend a few nights there at Covewood Lodge. That's where we went this fall.
Right.
And we had been there for the 100th anniversary. Oh, they had all kinds of things going on. It was just beautiful. They had a wreath laying in the water for Grace.
Oh boy.
They had the TV station out there in the middle of the lake. It was really beautiful. But anyways, we were kind of thinking Grace Brown a lot. So one night we walked on a path down to a gazebo that goes out on the lake. And we sat there, pitch black, no lights. And I guess we were kind of like conjuring her a little bit, edging her to come out and tell us more. And out of the sky, it just was kind of a white, misty, filmy, milky vision of a woman just came forward to us and then just dissipated.
That's fascinating.
Well, it was more than fascinating. Our hair stood up. Everything was up. And did you see that? Did you see that?
Well, that was my other thought. It was probably scarier than I can't even imagine.
Because it came out of nowhere.
Sure. Wow, that's something.
But,
that's something.
we believe in our hearts that it was her, because where did it come from? What was it?
Well, let's talk about that. Debunking. Do you go into everything first trying to debunk anything?
Always. And, we debunk really
a lot.
Quite a bit.
The next thing I wanted to know was how much of all of your evidence can you attribute to other things?
Maybe 50%.
Yeah, quite a bit.
And what are some of those things that you usually find out that, an orb might be, or a light or a mist could be?
Well, I don't think we've ever just debunked a mist.
That's kind of hard.
We have lights maybe shining off of mirrors or glass windows.
When it comes to ectoplasm or mist, it's because we have certain strict rules, like we don't smoke, and we're not outside where it's cold, where you're going to see your breath.
Right.
That kind of thing that could be misconstrued for, ectoplasm appearing.
If you're inside, where does that come from?
Where is it going to come from? Exactly.
Well, at the Stanley Theater, I just stood on the balcony there, and I made a statement. I said this, and there were other seekers around me. I said, wouldn't it be cool if all of a sudden those beautiful staircases, you just seen a spirit, a ghost, just floating up these stairs? I was just being facetious when I said it. It wasn't a few minutes later, one of the seekers came up and said, will you look at what's going on those stairs? And it was starting to form. And it was a ball of mist, black, and then it got bigger and bigger. It just kept moving up. We've seen this with our eyes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not. There's not a possibility of faulty equipment. There's not a possibility of. If you're seeing something with your very own eyes, then chances are. I'll give you an example. We were in the Cashtown Inn, 2008, and we were staying in the General Lee Suite, which is the attic suite where the original owners, the Mickleys, ran up to hide when the Confederates came through on their way to Gettysburg, and they took over the Cashtown.
I know that place.
Yes.
I've been in that place.
Oh, my God. What an amazingly beautiful, beautiful place. And I purposely wanted to stay in the General Lee Suite because Ghost Hunters was there. And I didn't know at the time that I booked it, but they had been there. And then the episode came out right before we went. And we were sitting on the sofa, and they had a book where guests could leave comments and questions, and we loved it here. And so I was just casually reading through it before dinner, and we were on the third floor, and there was nothing really under us because it was a spiral staircase up to the third floor. And we were sitting on the sofa, and I had just read to Dave, this one lady said that the sofa shook, and not 30 seconds later, our sofa began to shake. And it did it for about 20 seconds, stopped, and then shook some more for another 10 or 15 seconds, and then it just completely stopped. And I tried everything I could think of to debunk this thing. I tried, was there a dishwasher going on in the restaurant downstairs, but the restaurant wasn't open, there was nobody down there. I tried, was somebody walking up the stairs, we were the only ones in the Cashtown that evening. I tried everything I could think of, but I felt it myself. It's like seeing it with your own eyes. I felt it. There was nothing there that could have done it. So how do you debunk something like that?
That's like at the Overlook Mansion when the sofa.
Yes.
That some of the people were sitting on. And
I was sitting on that with
There
Helen.
you go. You were.
Same thing.
Unbelievable experience. And how do you debunk something like that?
You
can't.
You don't.
No.
You have to experience it. You have to experience it. What I've always said to people when they say, I don't believe in ghosts or there's no such thing, my wish for you is that someday you do.
Yeah.
Because once you do, you're never the same, and nobody's going to tell you anything.
It changes everything for you. I believe fully that investigation should be scientific. 100%. I believe that it should be scientific, but I think that you should go by your feelings and your eyes and what you feel and what you experience personally. when you investigate?
Yeah, the number one thing that we run into when we do our lectures and presentations, we always will have someone hang around and tell us, I never believed until they had a very close loved one pass away, and they'll come to them before they move on.
You hear a lot of stories about that. A lot of stories. I've heard growing up, I read a lot about the paranormal and anything I could get my hands on. And I heard a lot of stories about people receiving telephone calls from their dead grandparent or uncle or aunt before they even realized that they were gone. And they were already gone when they received these calls. Mm-hmm. To me,
how do you explain
how
that?
do you explain that? There's just no way. There's more to this story than meets the eye. That's how I look at
There's
life.
There's more to this life than
That's
meets
right.
the eye.
Very, very true. You know, I wanted to ask you guys, too, because I interviewed Bobby. She is a psychic medium. I interviewed her for episode 2 of my podcast back in August. She's done investigations with you guys. What does adding a psychic or medium or a sensitive person add to the dynamic of your investigation?
Well, it does add. It adds a positive note. Sometimes they are able to reach out and get more communication with the spirit world. Sometimes it's a distraction.
How so?
Well, they can actually chase spirits away.
I was just going to say that. They actually can.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We had done an investigation where one of the psychics, we were there for a ghost investigation.
Right.
The place was purportedly haunted. And she got there and just started passing them all on.
Really?
And then she told us, well, I'm so tired because I keep passing these ghosts on. And it was like, wait a minute.
But wait, it's not what we wanted.
Yeah, you could do that when we're done with the investigation.
Wait for a little while. Really?
And sometimes, too, a psychic medium can get really involved, really deep, to the point where we feel like, well, what are we?
Sure. Then what are you there for?
What are we there for?
That's right.
And our group is really unique and different than any other ghost group in the fact that we're very spiritual. We're all about positivity and karma, and we pray before an investigation, at the end of an investigation. We're very kind, gentle ghost hunters. We don't shout or conjure or like the stuff you see all dramatically portrayed on television.
Right.
We feel that our methodology really works. We get great evidence.
Well, let's talk a little bit about TV paranormal shows. How do you really feel about them? I look at them as great entertainment and they're a lot of fun, but I know that a lot of it's all in the editing and how it works. How do you guys feel about them? Do you think do you think that they portray real ghost investigation, spiritual investigation in a bad light sometimes?
Depending on the
I'll
show.
tell you what,
Ghost Hunters is pretty good, accurate.
I like Ghost Hunters. I've always liked Ghost Hunters. I've thought that
I haven't watched their new stuff yet.
I haven't either.
I can't imagine, though, the pressure that they're under when you've got a professional film crew, and you're trying to do a nice, quiet investigation, and you got all these people around, and then...
You've got to come up with evidence.
And it's not POD. It's not paranormal on demand. We do investigations and get nothing, but...
I watched one last night, and it's the first one in a long time that I've watched. And it's funny you brought this up because this morning I got up and I thought to myself, I don't think I'm going to watch any of them anymore.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like
there's
that.
There's too many of them, number one. And
just now there's about 3 or 4 new ones out on the Travel Channel. It seems like the Travel Channel is the ghost channel these days. It really is. So I understand completely what you're saying.
Yeah,
I kind of get...
And I'm always disappointed. Because like Dennis said, when we do an investigation, and we get all kinds of evidence. Way more than what they're even seeing on TV.
Sure. There's a few of them that I sort of, I'm just gonna say it. Ghost Adventures to me is pure and utter entertainment.
It's entertainment.
It's my husband makes fun of them all the time because he's experienced things along with me. He was one of the biggest skeptics you could ever meet in your life until he started having experiences with me.
Right.
And seeing things, and so now he kind of shakes his head, and now he makes fun of the ones that are obviously pure entertainment. The Ghost Hunters guys, I've always liked. I've always thought that their intentions, regardless of whether there was a lot of editing to their actual show. I always believed in their intentions. But that's probably one of the few that I actually will sit there and say.
They started out with the right intentions.
Yes.
But it blossomed into something else.
Yeah.
And then there were some pretty nasty things that happened.
Oh, yeah.
To that team. Things they shouldn't have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that we've even through the years we've mentioned, TV stuff.
But no, because we don't charge a penny to do any of our investigations or anything, and that's part of the positive experience and the karma that we put out there, that we're there with good intention.
Do you ever investigate and people don't want you to, let's say you take a psychic medium with you and they want to send everybody on. Do you ever get owners of properties that say, but I like this. I don't want them to leave. This is good for us.
Absolutely. Most people have spirits and ghosts, and they coexist quite happily. They like having them around.
I will tell you that as excited as I get, we were in the Bray Lock because of you guys.
Yeah.
I saw your Ghost and Toast episode, and I said to Dave, we have to go stay there for the night. I have to stay. And we stayed in room, was it 12, the
12.
one?
12 is the haunted room.
Yes,
yeah.
We stayed in room 12. And as excited as I was as we were getting this evidence, I was also a little bit unnerved and a little bit nervous about it because I'm sitting there and Bernadette, you let me borrow the Gauss meter and I took it and you can tell temperature and EMF at the same time. And I was literally getting someone or something to raise and lower the room temperature for me on command.
Wow.
I went up 5 degrees, I'd go down 3 degrees, and I'm talking this up and I'm talking it down. I was getting readings towards the closet, spikes.
Yeah.
I was not getting spikes anywhere else in the room. It was
because
wild.
That closet is where we had the knocking.
That's where Vincey got scared.
Yes.
That was great. That was
Yes.
great. That was great. But the Braylock, just a great example because as excited as I was still very unnerved by
how I am.
something responding to my asking it to do something. So you're right. I don't know if you ever do get used to it. And I don't know if you ever want to get used to it.
Some people do. No, I don't. Now that you said that,
Yeah.
I never thought of it. I guess I don't want to.
Yeah, I
Because
think
it's
so.
the thrill.
Sure.
Well,
It's also the thrill.
My experience in there wasn't good. Well, we were in the dungeon, in the dining room, that dungeon area where
Yes.
they see the shadow person all the time, and we were doing a seance.
Oh, that was that woman.
Yes, Sarah
witch.
the ghost, Sarah the ghost, or whatever that you saw her.
She was smelling people.
Yeah, she was going around the room. Now, a seance, you're in a circle and you hold hands.
Right.
But that's where we use the term succubus. But it's funny now, but it wasn't funny when it happened to me. But she absolutely leaned up against and rubbed her hands down my arms. I could smell her. I could feel her like trying to enter my body.
How does that feel when they touch you? Is it cold? Is it...
I don't even know how to explain
Pressure?
it. It was the only time it ever happened to me. It was so freaky. My brother was holding my hand on one side and
I was
you on the
holding
other,
her, yeah.
and they said I was rattling.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't remember that, but it was just very off-putting.
Yeah, he was drained.
I felt like violated.
I can imagine. Drained is probably a great word because doesn't it just take so much out of you just
When
to
you don't
have
know
an
what's
experience
happening,
like that?
You can't explain it, and you can't even believe it's happening at the same time.
Sure. Let's talk intelligent versus residual hauntings. What's the difference?
Big difference. An intelligent haunt is when you've bumped into or they've bumped into you, the spirit world. And they can interact with you, like you'll ask them, can you knock on the table for me? And they'll respond with your commands.
Just a quick example of that, and then I want one or two from you guys. I was in St. Augustine at the lighthouse. I was in the Keeper's Cottage. We were on a ghost tour, a moonlight ghost tour.
Good for
And
you.
95% of the people there were there because it was a thrill, and they were all excited, and they had their K2 meters, and they were running around. So after the tour, we were given the choice of either going to the lighthouse, where the ghost hunters made it famous, or going into the Keeper's Cottage. Well, everybody went to the lighthouse because there was a shadow that looked down over and they wanted to see the shadow. I said to Dave smartly, let's go in the Keeper's Cottage. And we had K2 meters. There is a documented story about two little children losing their lives when they were trying to move the lighthouse back because of the erosion years and years ago in the 1800s, getting into a cart to play, and it went into the ocean and they drowned. I was interacting intelligently with something that told me that it was one of the children. Literally, yes and no questions with the K2 meter. And then it would stop, and I'd move. And there was no electricity. It's important to know that there was no EMF, no base EMF in the entire building. And I would go over to the rocking chair, the child's rocking chair, and it would start again. So it was obviously moving, and it was intelligently answering my questions. And Dave's face was priceless. I wish I had gotten a picture of Dave's face during this interaction rather than anything else, because it was priceless. But very intelligent, answering my questions, yes, no. What are some of the kind of experiences you guys have had with intelligent spirits?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we had one really excellent EVP, which stands for Electronic Voice Phenomenon. When we were doing an investigation, we called the place the Adirondack Mansion in Woodgate.
Yeah.
Out behind this house, at one time it was a post office and a hotel, and out back was a big, beautiful old wood shop. And it was all empty, and the owners walked us through, and the grandfather had passed away, and that was his sanctuary, this place. And they said no one was allowed, none of the kids or grandkids were allowed to go into that wood shop. It was Grandpa's place. So our investigators were walking through around midnight, and they heard something. And when we listened later, it was a voice of a man saying, "What are you doing here?" And the kicker was, when we played this EVP for the family, they said that was the voice of their dead grandfather.
Unbelievable. What does that make, when you hear that and when they tell you that, how does that make you feel?
That was pretty wild. Remember that day when we did that?
That is pretty wild when it happens. There's a cool one, which is the residual hunt. And it is the only one that I can... Well, this one was paramount. Let's put it that way. We were on Riscony Battlefield. We were doing a year-long investigation of the battlefield that they'd asked us to do. And we were on the west side of, I'm going to say, the Bloody Ravine. I don't know if this makes any sense. But anyways, at the time, I was a newer group, and we didn't have a lot of equipment. We had one camera, a video camera, and it was with two men on the other side of the battlefield. So there were 5 of us. We just had our cameras with us at the time. And we were walking over the battlefield, and all of a sudden we could smell something like flowers. And it was just such a sweet smell, so we kind of headed toward that way. There was a tree line along the battlefield, and we looked, and you had to close your eyes and keep, is that someone back there? And along that tree line, there was a man walking. It was a man of small stature, and he was walking back and forth and cocking his gun.
Oh my gosh.
And he just would repeat it over and over and over again. Now, all 5 of us seen it. And we just couldn't believe it. I mean, tears were running down our eyes. What is this? And then to the right, there was a man, and I don't know, I kind of thought he was an Indian, but I don't know now, because he didn't have any shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just standing there kind of like a guard. But this whole thing continued on, I'd say, for about 30 seconds. We had our medium with us, and she, was telling us to go back, that it was hostile.
Wow, that's something.
I mean, it was great. I have never seen anything like it. But it was certainly something that was going on during the time that the battle was fought there.
How does residual, people say that it's sort of like a tape recorder that plays over and over and over again.
That's what this man was doing, this soldier. He was walking back and forth, cocking his gun, kind of going down on one knee, get up, go back the other way, over and over and over and over again.
And so the energy is just trapped in that.
It's just trapped in time.
It's just fascinating.
And sometimes they say that they don't know, these people don't know that they're dead.
Right.
They don't, or they're stuck here for many reasons. They haven't moved on, and they're doing the last thing they were doing.
A lot of reports at the Gettysburg battlefield
Same
of
thing.
entire battalions marching through the fields. And people will go to the visitors center because anybody who does any sort of reenacting at the battlefield has to sign in at the visitor center. They have to get permission to reenact. And people will go there and there's nobody signed up that day. That happened to us. We were driving through the battlefield and 3 young boys were walking through, 2 with flags and 1 with a drum. And they walked right past us. They didn't look at us. We just drove past them, checked with the visitor center. There was nobody who should have been reenacting that day. So it was right near, right over by Little Round Top, right over in that area coming down through. And to this day, we have no idea. They didn't look like they knew we were there. They looked solid. So I'm assuming that if that indeed was, it had to have been residual.
It had to have been.
And so I think
I love it.
I think I'm more fascinated by the residual
I am too.
aspect than the intelligent aspect.
I don't know. There's something about a residual haunt that it grabs you.
It does. It does.
And what did that man say? We were talking about ghosts. When I told the story about this residual haunt,
Yeah.
he came up. There was a gentleman in the audience, and he said, well, I can tell you what you've seen was real because it's been written about in historical fact
Oh my
of
gosh.
the battlefield. And that man that you seen that you thought was an Indian, it actually probably wasn't, because how they tortured them was, remember he said they
Yeah.
cut their legs off at the knees. They would stand them up and they would be that way till they bled to death. And they'd set a guard to watch over that person. And he told me the name of the book and I forgot it. He says it's historical and you can read
That's
it in this book.
Amazing.
Now, I
That's
wish
absolutely
if that
amazing.
man's listening to this, if he's out there, please contact me.
I know. That's just amazing.
I couldn't believe it that day. It was like all of these years from 2003 till now, and I got somebody corroborating this story. It was just
it just must.
unbelievable.
Wow, that must just.
I went nuts.
I
went
would
crazy.
too. I would too, though.
Yeah.
So, all right, favorite, before I let you go, favorite investigation you probably ever done.
Well, I would say absolutely the Russia Union Church in the town of Russia, because it was just crazy from beginning to end. I mean, Bernadette got
was
pushed by an
crazy.
unseen entity down a flight of stairs. Helen, our friend, we don't want to use the word possession, but something entered her and she was speaking in a different voice. They were using her. We captured on video an actual entity walking towards the camera on the second floor of the church. We nicknamed it the Grim Reaper, and we had no idea. And then Dave, Bernadette's husband, and I and Josh had an EVP session that was unbelievable in the little children's or the little schoolhouse below. It was just unreal.
Now, when something like that happens, how do you make sure that nothing follows you home? How do you make sure that you're okay
We just
afterwards?
pray, and you have to have faith in your seeking out from Jesus and the good world to protect you.
Bernadette Peck and Dennis Webster, Ghost Seekers of Central New York. You guys are amazing, and I am so fortunate to know you and to hear these stories. You guys are just wonderful. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I've done a lot of things, some of which I ain't too proud of, but it's my life and who I chose to be. So I've done a lot of drinking, and I've smoked my share of green, but when I flipped my truck, I was sober as could be. Yeah, this is my story. The truth behind me.